Hello, this is Lindsay Kubrick, Connor Worley, and Alex Cook. We are in Business Law 2150, Section 116, and today's date is December 3rd, 2015. Our topic for our final presentation is gun control laws in the workplace. Gun control in general has been a controversial topic in recent years in the United States. The media is constantly releasing stories of tragic violent events committed by seemingly everyday normal citizens. An alarming fact of these events is that they have happened in ordinary public places that are gun-free zones and that one would not typically fear for their lives. These events have caused an uproar of discussion on gun control laws and has created a controversy among the country and has developed a need for solutions that is currently undetermined. The topic of gun control laws in the workplace is important and relatable to business law. It's important in business because gun control affects the rules on guns within a business or corporation and how they are regulated. The workplace is business and has been a proven trend of target to those who are responsible for these tragic shootings. It can affect law in the business sense in that business would have to prove that they are not liable for gross negligence in the case of an employee having a firearm and it accidentally going off. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there has been a total number of 48,280 incidents involving gun violence and a total of 310 mass shootings in just 2015 alone. It's our group's stance that strengthening the gun control laws would not improve these numbers. However, we do believe that passing these laws would make it more difficult to obtain a gun, such as national database for mental health patients, closing gun show loopholes, etc., would improve these numbers. The difference of beliefs that exists among the United States is what makes the topic of gun control in the workplace so interesting.
Every mass shooting has been followed by heavy debate about whether there should be more or less gun control. Most of these tragedies have occurred in places of work, such as Sandy Hook Elementary School, Chattanooga military recruiting centers, and most recently at Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino. Each of these shootings occurred at places marked with signs that state gun-free zone, and all victims were unarmed. These were also places of employment. Sandy Hook employed teachers and administrative staff, Chattanooga had military members, and Inland Regional Center had a wide array of employees. Generally, each shooting has been followed with heated debate over which direction gun control should move and how these shootings can be prevented. Gun rights activists claim that if employees and citizens alike were allowed to carry firearms, mass shootings could be stopped. There is in fact evidence of armed civilians stopping shooters, but there are a few reasons why the public does not hear about them. These reasons include there not being a central database for such events, these events do not usually make it in national media, and if the gunman is stopped before he shoots a larger number of people. The majority of the time, these shootings occur in zones in which gun carrying is not permitted, so citizens do not have the chance to defend themselves. One of the more hotly debated topics when it comes to gun control is whether or not military members who are employees should be allowed to carry guns at recruiting centers. The recent shooting in Chattanooga, which killed 4 unarmed Marines and 1 sailor, has brought this question to national attention. A Navy commanding officer engaged the attacker with a personal firearm. The Navy attempted to court-martial this officer, but charges have been dropped. All military recruiting centers are currently gun-free zones, but this tragedy has incurred a push for service members to be able to carry firearms in their places of work.
In the Gun-Free School Zone Act of 1990, this federal law made it illegal for anyone to bring a firearm within 1,000 yards on a public school campus. This bill allows police officers or anyone that possesses a firearm which will be used for an official program approved and held by the school to have a firearm on site. This bill also excludes anyone who possesses a carry permit. It should be noted that a carry permit is not the same thing as having a permit for a firearm. That being said, it would be unlawful for a faculty member to have a firearm on his person or stowed away in his office unless he has been issued a carry permit. This bill is still relevant today and has never been repealed. In Drake versus Jerigian, this could possibly be the most important gun law case in most recent times. This court case backs the decision in District of Columbia versus Heller. In that case, the deciding court upheld the public's ability and constitutional right to own and store guns at someone's home in the name of self-defense. This case proposes that the Second Amendment extend the constitutional right to carry guns for self-defense purposes outside of the home. According to New Jersey law, in order for someone to lawfully carry a firearm in public, they must first prove a justifiable need to do so. Two courts ruled that the Second Amendment does not extend outside of the home, but an appeals court in California decided otherwise. The Supreme Court has been reluctant to get involved. This issue still stands, and similar court cases have brought mixed results. A case in Illinois that restricted any sort of carry of firearms was struck down as being unconstitutional. The final decision regarding this case is still yet to be seen. That being said, it's likely that this case could be the determining factor in regards to the issue of should firearms be allowed in public places. If a court finds that the Second Amendment does in fact extend outside the home, it will be very interesting to see how this would affect laws such as the Gun-Free School Zone Act of 1990 and other similar laws. In Policy Lessons from Recent Gun Control Research by Gary Kleck, Kleck found that armed civilians shot more criminals than police did. While the shooting and injuring or killing of anyone is sad, the data listed in Kleck's research only took into account what the FBI considers justifiable or excusable homicide. The FBI considers a justifiable homicide by a civilian to be when the civilian kills a criminal during an independent felony, such as a robbery or rape. According to the FBI, there were 490 justifiable homicides in the year of the study. An excusable homicide occurs in a self-defense killing. FBI statistics show that there were more than twice as many excusable homicides than justifiable homicides in that year. The data does not take into account the periods when a firearm is used to apprehend or to deter a criminal. The study claims that the majority of firearms used in self-defense are used in this manner. The same study found that armed civilians are more apt to prevent crimes than the police are. The research found that armed civilians were 83% successful in stopping a crime, whereas the police had a success rate of 68%. The researchers also surveyed criminals and found that the majority of those surveyed agreed that they would not target a citizen if they believed that they were armed. In Crime Deterrence and Right to Carry Concealed Handguns by John Law and David Mustard from the University of Chicago's Law School found almost the exact same findings in their research. They came to the conclusion that if citizens are permitted to carry concealed weapons, crimes are significantly deterred and there is no evidence of an increase in accidental deaths. If states that do not allow citizens to carry concealed weapons did allow such provisions, murders would be reduced by approximately 1,570, rapes by 4,177, and aggravated assaults by over 60,000. Lastly, research done at the University of Massachusetts and funded by the Department of Justice further substantiated the claims earlier made regarding armed citizens during crime and violence. The researchers found that 57% of criminals were more afraid of armed citizens than they were of the police, and 40% of criminals said they had been deterred from committing a crime due to their belief that the intended victim was armed. There are over 100 million handguns in the United States, and 3.5 million people have concealed carry permits when this article was written. From the journal, the Harvard reviewers found that they believe, due to their research and data analysis, that gun violence and violence in general mainly stems from socioeconomic factors. They also found that when firearms are readily available and is viewed as either causative or a coincidence, it does not change the long-term evidence that supports the notion that widely available firearms across society correlates with declining murder rates. Cates and Mauser closed this portion of their analysis by stating, even if one is inclined to think that gun availability is an important factor, the available international data cannot be squared with the mantra that more guns equal more death and fewer guns equal less death. Rather, if firearm availability does matter, the data consistently shows that the way it matters is that more guns equal less violent crime. The author also found that, confirming their previous statements, the geographic regions with higher gun ownership generally had fewer murders. To help show this point, we have two maps. The first map shows the number of gun owners by state, and the second shows the number of mass shootings by state. As you can see, the number of mass shootings typically occurs in states with the strongest gun control and the lowest number of gun owners. There are a few outliers in this data, but nonetheless, it does not change the overall point that states with fewer gun owners have more mass shootings. The number of deaths from those mass shootings is also lower in states with higher gun ownership.
We believe that if citizens were allowed to carry and stow firearms in their workplace, such as schools, offices, and other forms of business, that the United States would be safer. While most of the research available about guns in the public sector does not specifically address mass shootings, we found the information to be relevant to the issue nonetheless. Research shows that stricter gun control would not reduce mass shootings, and also shows that armed civilians do in fact deter crime. A more heavily armed population correlates with a reduction in homicide, as does a population with more concealed carry permits. The evidence presented along with historical examples of armed civilians stopping mass shootings confirms our belief that firearms in the workplace would make us a safer nation.